There we go. There's me. So yeah, we're going to get into some different things, and this is going to kind of overlap with the person that's coming after me as well. So we're going to hear some of this, I think probably twice. We'll find out. It'll be fun. But let's ask this question, shall we? And that is, can I make a living being a podcaster? Well, you could. Can I make a living as an author? Well, you're probably not going to sell your first book. Or what if I want to be an actor? Well, you're going to have to do some auditions and you're going to get turned down and it's going to take a while. What if I want to be an athlete? Well, you're going to have to do a lot of practicing and you might make an income. What if I want to make a living? Can I make a living as a podcaster? Yeah, but keep in mind that when you put out that first episode, that's the first time that guitarist tries to play a C chord, or that football player tries to throw one or tries to kick a field goal. We got to start someplace. And just because you started doesn't mean you're going to have success. So keep that in mind as we go through here. It's not starting a podcast is easy. Starting a good podcast takes some effort. So here in the bottom left-hand corner, you've got your target audience. They're watching cat videos. They're talking French toast recipes. They're having a great old time. They have their attention. And then you have your goal. I'd like to make some money with this podcast. Okay, great. That's your goal. So not a big deal. But the fun part is the part in the middle. What can I talk about that's going to hold their attention and get them to do your why? That's one of the things you have to, if you cannot say why I'm starting a podcast, and this is about monetization. So this is a business. This is not Batman in the basement. This is somebody like, hey, I want to do this and I want to make some money at it. And if that's the case, then you have to do this with purpose, because your why is going to dictate what your episodes are about. If I'm trying to position myself as an expert, I'm going to probably go through and all those questions that you're like, ugh, if I have to answer that again, those are great episodes. So there's different reasons, but you have to know your why and figure out what my audience wants and then give it to them. So step one of making money with your podcast is get an audience. And a lot of people love to skip this step. They're like, hey, I got 5 episodes out. When do I get a sponsor? And I'm like, okay, do you have one of these yet? I don't know. If this was my audience, I'd probably want to sell life insurance. Everybody in here is old in this picture, but at any rate, that's one of the keys is who is your audience? You have to know your audience. And my little bumper sticker answer for this is you have to spend at least $100 on a microphone and at least 100 hours getting to know your audience. And you go, did you say 100 hours? Yeah, 100 hours. And I don't mean, because you're going to look at that and go, well, that's what, 4 days, something like that. Yeah, no, 100 hours. Because then you're not going to be guessing, what do I do to engage my audience? You're going to know. You're going to take that guesswork out of that. So to grow an audience, you need a good podcast. And this is where I said again, most podcasters do not have, I feel, this is my opinion, I don't think most podcasters have the courage to ask, is this good? They'll look at their download numbers and they'll say, hey, I got, 13 downloads on my first episode. Is that any good? You can't compare it to other people. You have to ask your audience, and you have to go to somebody not named mom and say, tell me about this podcast. How much of this did you listen to? What's the thing you remember most about it? That's going to let you know if it was good or not. So what I did is I reverse engineered everything I watch, whether it's TV, radio, Netflix, Hulu, satellite radio, whatever. I said, okay, why am I listening to this? Why am I watching this? And it came down to this. Everything that I was giving my time to made me either laugh, cry, think, groan. It educated me or it entertained me. If you're not making somebody laugh, cry, think, groan, educate, or entertain, there's a word for that. You're boring. It's just straight up, you're boring. Now, if you can do more than one of those, like if I can make you laugh as I educate you, that's now we're getting it. If I can make you cry while you think, that's good. You want to do more than these. And then the other key ingredient for many podcasters is this one. I'm giving you something that stands out from the rest. I'm giving you content you can't get other places. And in many cases, you should be getting it in other places. But for whatever reason, the only place you can get it is in a podcast. It makes you stand out. And so many people think podcasting is like radio. Podcasting is much more like cable TV. If you think about it, there's the Weather Channel. There's that one channel that's like everything's in black and white. I just call that the dead channel because everybody on it is dead. Then there's PBS and there's all sorts of different things. I think podcasting is much more like cable TV than it is radio. It's hyper niche people like, oh my gosh, I love the Rockford Files. I haven't seen this in years, and they love it. So keep that in mind. It's not always about trying to get this huge audience. It's about trying to get that engaged audience for a target. And your podcast typically is not your product. It's not your business. It's your business card. It's the thing that you use to get people to know, like, and trust you. So one of the things you can do to know, like, and trust you is reliability. So what I do, I recommend to all my clients, record 4 or 5 episodes, because we're probably going to delete those, because you're that musician starting in the basement. You're probably not that good yet, but you're getting your feet wet. Record a few episodes, figure out how long it's going to take, then come up with your schedule, because you don't try to fit your podcast. You basically say, oh, I'm going to do a daily podcast. And I go, oh, you sure about that? Record a few, then figure out how can I fit my podcast around my life, not my life around my podcast. So that when you say, hey, I'm going to do 2 podcasts a month or 1 a week or whatever it is, when you start to hit that I haven't missed a Monday in 16 years. People know that on Monday, Dave's putting out the School of Podcasting. Now you're seen as reliable. When you create wow content, somebody asked, is word of mouth the way you promote it? Yep. 70%, according to Jacobs Media, of people discover podcasts. There's not a discovery problem. There's a content problem. Your content's not making people go, did you hear what Dave did on his episode? Holy cow. I just listened to Congressional Dish, and she was talking about how the U.S. government totally is dropping the ball when it comes to product safety. Did I tell people about it? I just told 32 right now. So when you create wow content, that is going to come in handy. And then if you can share a little bit about yourself. Now, I'm going to talk about how my cat ruined my couch. No, I'm talking about when you have a personal story that ties in with whatever the point is you're trying to make. So for instance, when I was married, I had a 16-year-old who wanted to learn how to drive his car. And so I said, when you start a podcast, you need the passion of a 16-year-old trying to get their driver's license. And so it just lets people know a little bit about you, and it helps illustrate a point. So that way they know you because you've given them wow content and you've shared your story, and they trust you because you're consistent. So they know you, they like you, they trust you, and they then will buy from you when you say, I've got a new book, I've got a new course, I've got consulting, whatever it is. The other thing is, don't quit. I know, but you're like, but Dave, I'm on episode 12. I'll show you in a bit. It takes not weeks, not months. We're talking years here to develop an audience if you're starting from scratch. Because there are those people that start up and they just make a boatload of money, and you go, well, look at Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan started in 1989. Joe Rogan started in 1989 with his content. And people are going to pay with one of two things. Either money. Somebody asked, should I pay for ads? Do you got more money or time? Because if you got more money, sure, go ahead and do that. If you don't, then take your own time and promote your show. And how do you grow your audience? By knowing who your audience is. We just talked about that. Go to where they are, especially if they don't know you. I just spoke in Dallas last week. And I was on a stage and I said, how many people have never heard me speak before? And about 80% of the room put up their hands. And I was like, that is awesome, because that's what you want to do. Find my target audience who doesn't know you yet. Everybody on social media knows who I am. And when I go, hey, here's a new episode for you to share with your friends, they go, yeah, we know, Dave, you're a podcast guy. What do people pay for? They pay to be transformed. I want to go from point A to point B. When people join the School of Podcasting, they come in, I don't know anything about podcasting. They want me to take them, hey, I want to be an Apple and Spotify and Google. Okay, good. Let me transform you. They want to basically, when will they pay for that? When the pain of like, I don't know, I've watched a bunch of outdated YouTube stuff. Nothing seems to make sense. And I'm ready to throw my computer out the window. And you say, well, I can help you with that problem if you just give me X amount of money. And when the pain of taking the money out of the wallet is less than the pain of pushing through the learning curve, they will pay you for that. So the bigger the pain that you solve, the more you can charge. But if you're like, yeah, I can help you with this little problem, they may not be willing to pay for that. And also, going back to your audience, does your audience have any money? I did a podcast for musicians for 10 years. Guess what? Musicians don't have any money. So keep that in mind. Also, people will pay for free stuff. If you're like, well, who would pay money for me? Oh, they'll pay money. Trust me. In the US, there are two popular movies. The one on the left in December is shown, I swear, every single day on multiple stations. It's Elf with Will Ferrell. And I could watch that movie for free, but I can also buy the DVD. Why? Because what if I don't want to have to wait till December? Okay. And then the other one is The Wizard of Oz, which is shown on TV multiple times a year in the US. I could wait for it to come on TV. And oh, by the way, when it's on TV, it's about 6 hours long because they just stuff it full of ads. Or I could spend $4 on Amazon and rent it. The top way to make money when I did the research for my book is selling your own stuff. Why? Because you know who your audience is and you know what their problems are. And so now they know you, they like you, they trust you. And you say, I've got a course that'll walk you right through that pain. I've got a book that'll tell you about that. Oh, by the way, if you want to hire me as a consultant, I can do this. Oh, by the way, we're having a live webinar this week. You can show up. And guess what? When that live webinar is done, you can take that recording and sell it. You can take that recording and transcribe it and turn it into a book. The top way to make money, you've got this relationship and now you've got a product. They will definitely do that. And some tools that will help you do that are Teachable, Thinkific, Podia, and Kajabi are some tools. And WordPress has a ton. I have a love-hate relationship with WordPress. So these are tools that are not WordPress related, but those are tools that can help you make courses. Right now I'm on Thinkific and I'm going to be moving to Teachable. And then in terms of scheduling your time with potential clients, Acuity Scheduling, who recently was purchased by Squarespace. That's who I currently use. A lot of people use Calendly. And a new one is called TidyCal. This is from AppSumo. And I think it's like $60 for life. And it's very basic, but it does exactly what you want. So there are tools to help you do this. And I've got a resource for this we'll get to at the end. If you want to do live streaming, I love StreamYard. I use it every Saturday for a live show. We're all familiar with Zoom. And I wasn't super familiar with this. Somebody just told me about this. OpenShot is kind of like, if you've ever heard of Audacity is open source, OpenShot is a video editor. So if you don't put out $300 for Camtasia, OpenShot is a free video editor. Another way to make money with your podcast is affiliate marketing. And I've seen people absolutely kill it with this. And this is where if you look around and see something that you like I love the Zoom PodTrack P4. And every time somebody buys money or buys this thing off my website, I make money. And it's a great way, instead of selling, you guys, look, Dave, I don't have a product. Great, sell other people's stuff and make money from it. I've seen people absolutely kill it. I have a free course right now that you can take, and I will teach you how to make your own website for your podcast. And when you sign up for the service that I'm teaching you on, I earn a commission. There are all sorts of ways that you can make money with affiliate marketing. The key is matching the product with the audience. I did a weight loss show and I found these deck of cards that you could deal yourself a workout. And I talked about it on my show and I made $1.50 every time somebody bought a deck. And I had my phone set up to kind of make a noise every time I got a commission. And it was just like $1.50, $1.50, $1.50, $1.50. And it just all of a sudden that adds up a lot because it was the right product for the right audience. A lot of people love to jump into ads. I'm going to start a podcast and get a sponsor. In my travels, not the top way to make money with a podcast. One thing is I have had people contact me to be a sponsor, but most of the time you have to go to them and say, hey, I've got your audience over here. And the other thing is, because it kind of comes from radio, they like to sell it in this model of CPM, which stands for price per 1,000 downloads. And right now it's anywhere from $15 to $35 per commercial on an episode. So let's say I get 1,000 downloads, which most of us don't. But if I did, I might get $15. If I had 2,000 downloads, I'd get $30. Less than 10% of podcasts get enough downloads to where this really makes sense. So that's why I say don't use this CPM thing from radio. Sell per episode, because I've got a target audience. I've got, people over 50 trying to lose weight, and you've got a product for people that are trying to lose weight over 50. In fact, you don't have to have a huge audience. I had somebody on my show on episode 770. Colin came on. He does a show for pet sitters. Now, these are people that are like walking your dog and they're, while you're on vacation or whatever. And there was a company that makes software for pet sitters. And do they want on his show? Absolutely, as their target audience. I have a sponsor right now on the School of Podcasting. Why? Because this guy really wants to get to podcasters. And I said, wait a minute, let me use your product first, because if I say this is a great product and then it's not, whose integrity gets bashed on that? Mine. People are going to go, you lied. So you can get sponsors with a smaller audience if it's niche. Another way you can make ads is what's called programmatic. And these are often very generic. And when I did my testing of this, I was making 0.00, which the last time I checked was 0, but 0.0017 cents per download, or $1.70 per 1,000 downloads. And for me, that's not worth having my audience sit through a 30-second ad to make 0.0017 cents. But those are the people like, you can make money from day one. Okay, sure. Crowdfunding can be very, very lucrative. There are 3 types of people when it comes to crowdfunding. First of all, notice it is crowdfunding, not fund crowding. You have to have the crowd first. Then you have people that like, I just want you to do your art, man. I love your show. Keep doing it. And an example of this is the No Agenda Show. These people get people to donate thousands, not exaggerating, thousands of dollars every episode. Why? Remember that slide when I talked about things you can't get other places? This is it. So they want people to keep doing your show because this is the only place I can get this. The second type of person when it comes to crowdfunding, I want more. This is really good. Do you have more? I would like seconds. And so an example of this is Congressional Dish. Another great example of information you can't get other places. And Jen does bonus episodes for her supporters. Then the third type person who will really pay more money is I want involved with the show. I want to pick the topics. I want to help shape the show. And a great example of this is Jonathan Oakes does Trivia Warfare. And somebody asked him, it's a show where they do trivia. And somebody said, hey, how do I get to play trivia with you? I want to be on the show. And Jonathan went, I have something that my audience values. And what do you do with that? I will trade my value for your value. You have money, I have a game. Here, you pay me money, I'll let you play the game. So those are the 3 types of people. And this is where people think it's great. Oh man, I've got 300 people. If I get 50% of my people to give me $20, that's going to add up. The problem is you're not going to get 50%. You're not going to get 20%. You're not going to get 10%. In fact, I forgot one thing. I'm one slide ahead of myself. But anyway, when it comes to getting involved, another way you can get people involved and things that people will pay for is being involved in a community. And there are a lot of tools for this. Circle.so is a really pretty cool platform that I'm playing with right now. Tribe is another one. Mighty Networks is another one. Slack is another one. And the bottom line is what I'm hearing over and over and over is people hate Facebook. In fact, if you go into Facebook right now, see how many groups you're subscribed to and see how many of those you go into. So it's not a matter of like, oh, holy cow, I've got 2,000 people in my Facebook group. How many people are actually interacting with you? And I've seen people move from Facebook to these types of situations. They have less members, but they're more engaged. So going back to, you're not going to get everybody to pay you money from that. Okay, Dave, it's not 50%. It's not 20%. It's not 10%. It's hold on. I'm going to go to that slide and then we're going to come back. I rearranged my slide 2 seconds before we did this. You're going to get about 3% of people that subscribe that actually want to be part of your community. And some tools that you can do are Patreon is really popular, although I kind of like Glow and Supercast. These are tools that let people subscribe in whatever app they want. With Patreon, you can do that, but you have to teach people how to copy and paste and manually subscribe. There's good old PayPal. That's another one. Just good old donations. If it doesn't have to be ongoing crowdfunding, if you just want to buy me a coffee is another one. These are all ways that you can have people give you money because they just want you to keep doing your show. Now, here's an example. I said, it's not going to be weeks. It's not going to be months. This is from a website called Graphtreon. And it's all these people on Patreon. And you can see some people don't share all their numbers. So True Crime Obsessed is number 1, but we don't know how much they're making. But it's more than $162,000. That's US a month. $162,000 a month. And you're like, wow, I'm going to start doing this. Well, hold on. Just so you know, I want you to make an educated decision. This podcast has been doing it at least for 3 years on Patreon. We don't know how long they've been doing their podcast, but they've been on Patreon for at least 3 years. Chapo Trap House has been doing it for 5 years, and Dark Cookie has been at least 4. So again, this is not going to happen overnight. It takes time to develop your audience. And again, you're going to get about 3% of those people. And you go, oh, that can't be right. And I wish it wasn't, but it is. There's a really popular show called Radio Lab, and they were doing a pledge drive trying to get to 1%. And they're hugely popular. So that's kind of a bummer, but it is the case. You will get opportunities. Here's a quick example. This is Rick Calvert. He ran an event called the New Media Expo, and they needed somebody for their podcast track. So he reached out to Rob Walsh from Libsyn. He reached out to Todd from Blueberry. These are all podcasting companies. He reached out to Rob Greenlee from Spreaker, and he said, hey, who do you think I should get to run my podcast track? You know who they said? What about that Dave Jackson guy from the School of Podcasting? Now, I realize that sounds like a humble brag. That's a true story. Now, how did that happen? Because of relationships, because I had all these guys on my show. And that's another way you benefit from podcasting. People that would never give you the time of day will now talk to you on your podcast. It's all about relationships. You can actually get employed. I was hired by Chancellor University when I was back doing teaching. Why? Because I knew podcasting. I just told you about the New Media Expo, and I now work for Libsyn. Why? Because of relationships. And your podcast can be a resume to show, look, I know what I'm talking about. So it will open doors. Another way here, and I'm wrapping up, and we've already heard people talk about this, the value for value model. And this is brand new. It's really geeky right now, but they are working on making it much easier. And this is where if somebody listens to your podcast, they will actually behind the scenes give you Bitcoin. And so as that starts to add up, I just looked up, I think I have $39 so far in Bitcoin from playing with this. And you can actually look at newpodcastapps.com. These are the apps that behind the scenes you can tie into Bitcoin to give people money as you listen. But the bottom line is, what's the number one way to make money? They all use them all. Be a consultant, have a book, have a course, have ads, have donations, do them all, because it's the more hoses you have filling a pool, the deeper it's going to get, the quicker it's going to get. One last example here is, this is Gary Leland, an underserved niche, women's fast-pitch softball, not getting a lot of love on TV. He embraced it. And also Gary has a sporting goods store. Gary used to spend $100,000 on Google ads. Gary doesn't do that anymore. Why? Because he created a podcast about women's fast-pitch softball. And people were like, holy cow, nobody's talking about this. They're talking about my sport. And who is the sponsor for Gary's women's fast pitch softball? That's right, Gary is. And he talks about his store, and he makes a ton of cash doing that. He's actually had press passes to cover women's fast pitch softball in the Olympics. So you can be your own sponsor. Oh, I forgot I have this in. I put this in because it's hyper niche, the chameleon breeder. And this guy sells cages. And his audience told him, look, we would buy cages from people overseas that are cheaper, but we want to buy them from you because we feel like we know you and we value the stuff that you've given us. So with that, I'm looking down and I'm like, we're pretty much at time. And if we want to do a little Q&A now, I see we have like 2 minutes for Q&A, but I can take 1 or 2 if you want, Chris. So
in the Arab world, podcasts aren't really a big thing, at least not as much as the West. How to deal with advertising in such a community? How to encourage people who don't listen to podcasts?
It's a great question. First of all, just because nobody's listening, add a word to that, yet. Because again, when you find a great podcast, people will talk about it. So I'll give an example. I went to a picnic with my family. And I walked in and I had my podcasting shirt on, and my one cousin said, okay, I'm going to ask. And I go, what? And they're like, what's a podcast? You've been talking about podcasting forever. What's a podcast? And I go, oh, what kind of phone do you have? And he goes, I have an iPhone. I'll go, come over here. I'll show you how to do it. Literally, I have like 5 or 6 cousins. They're like, wait, hold on. Nobody knew what the heck I was talking about. So when you ask people, do you listen to podcasts? Ask them for your phone and then say, well, what are you interested in? Oh, you like golf? Okay, hold on. Here's a golf podcast. Watch, look, this is free. And when I click follow, when I click subscribe, this is now when this person puts out, just show them. And then hopefully you find a good one, because there are a lot of really bad podcasts out there. So that would be one. And then for advertising, again, advertising is that's not my go-to for making money. See if you can find a product, see if you can find a service for them. Affiliate marketing sometimes can actually pay more than advertising, because if you have a smaller audience, I right now I'm making hundreds of dollars with an affiliate program that at times pays me, I think it's 45 cents a lead. But I found, and they really fit my audience. And then if they sign up and they use the software, I make $4. But $4, $4, $4, $4, $4. And all of a sudden you, at the end of the month, you're like, wait, I made what? $417, 45 cents at a time, but it's the right product for the right audience.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And I think when you have as much wherewithal or knowing about podcasts, it's again, just getting in wherever your circle is, wherever you have connections, especially on social media or in your groups in person. And like Dave said, showing them or just getting the content out there and leading them to that platform that they can experience on. So,
and I realize in Arab countries, Northern Africa, the iPhone is not as prevalent. If you find somebody with an iPhone, you can ask the woman, who I don't want to say because I have one sitting here, you can say, hey, so-and-so, subscribe to such and such podcast. And if your show is fairly, like you haven't made up words like mamapreneur or something like that, if you have just basic words, she's pretty good at subscribing. So they've made it really easy. You can also see if you can make a video of yourself saying, hey, here's how you subscribe to my show on Google Podcasts. And just, take a webcam and show people how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Let's see the next one here. What are your thoughts on publishing the podcast episodes on YouTube? Does it deprive the audio content its unique taste?
What I do with YouTube is, if you already have a YouTube channel, no, don't put your audio stuff on a video channel, because I know it looks like a video, but you know that I know that that's not a real video. So what I did was I created a second YouTube channel just for my, what I'm going to call fake video. And why? Because YouTube's the second largest search engine. So I put my kind of audio only kind of video, that thing, whatever we want to call that, on a second YouTube channel. Because I don't want people like, hey, here comes Dave with another video. And they click on it and they're like, this isn't a video. So if you're not doing anything with YouTube, absolutely, it's free. And most web hosts will do that. Libsyn will do that. There are a bunch of different media hosts that will convert your audio to video and publish it to YouTube. But I wouldn't mix just audio with video on the same channel. I would create a separate channel for that.
Yeah. And that's one big reason that I live record or video record my podcast episodes as well. So then I have the episode, the video of me and my guest talking, chatting, and sometimes they share something that they just talk about on the audio. So then I just put those on YouTube again, like Dave said, because it's such a big search engine. People are looking for things. And so that's one reason when I started, I went with let's do video. I started with Zoom. Now I do StreamYard to have that. And on top of that, creating video clips is a huge part of in marketing, and the short video clip form, Reels, TikTok, all that is just taken in more on those platforms, so we can repurpose those videos on social media as well.
That's it. And I just realized, I'm going to throw this in the chat room, all the resources, because I realized I spit out about 18 different resources there. If you go to schoolofpodcasting.com/podcon21, you'll have a list of all those resources, all the Glow and Patreon and StreamYard. You mentioned those. That's available as well. So what are the questions we got?
We got specifically to Dave, how would you promote your show?
First of all, everything starts with your audience. Who the heck is my audience? So mine is people that want to get more promotion about their product or service, or they want to find people. I had one guy, I joke about Batman in the basement. I had a guy that said, look, my family doesn't want to talk about superheroes. He's like, but I want to talk about superheroes. So he wasn't really trying to make money. He just wanted to find like-minded people. So figure out who your audience is, go to where they are. Now, do not skip this next step. Make friends with them. Bring value to the conversation, and then say, oh yeah, I talked about that on my podcast. And they go, you have a podcast? Because what happens is I found a forum. This is before Facebook. So again, I'm making myself sound ancient, but this was an actual forum for ex-radio DJs. And when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, these people know how to talk into a microphone. And I walked in and I was like, hey, everybody, I'm Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting. I can get you back on the air. You can reach a global audience. Follow me. Come on, Spot. And they just went, who is this crazy guy? Get him out of here. And I was banned in like 20 minutes. But if I'd come in, saw what they were talking about, and make friends with people, and then said, oh, by the way, have you guys ever heard of podcasting? I probably could have gotten some people from that forum, but instead I just walked in, not realizing that I just like a spamming idiot. So figure out who your audience is, go to where they are, make friends with them, and then tell them about your podcast. And while you're there, where your audience is, listen to what they're talking about, because they're going to give you ideas for future episodes.